Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Project Freelance. How's it going? My name is Kay Anagonio. I am your host here on this podcast, and every single Monday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I bring you a new episode about freelancing with a different freelancer. So this week, I am talking to a good friend of mine. His name is Ben Hull. We met on the summer of 2016. I believe that was the year it was. We were both on tour, and he was playing bass for Lacey Sturm. I was a fan of Lacey Sturm, so I started shooting her set every day that I saw her while we were doing festival runs. I was on tour with Escape the Fate, and Ben and I, met, became friends, and got to work together soon after that. But we'll talk more about that in this episode. Before we get started, I need to let you know that I have made a book, and you should get a copy of it. It is called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary. It is full of stories of all of the abandoned places I have explored over the past several years. Super excited about that book. One day I will make a part 2. I just have to go explore some new spots, which I'm going to be doing the second half of this year. So hopefully we get some cool new content for you guys. But thank you guys for listening to Project Freelance. I have to say a massive thank you to our partner, Liquid Death Water. If you've never heard of Liquid Death Water, well, hey, don't worry. There's an ad coming for you in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So yeah, use code JustTheLetterK for 10% off your order of Liquid Death Water. And without further ado, let's jump into this podcast with Ben Hull. Ben, please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience.
Well, thanks, Kay. My name is Benjamin Hall. I am a producer and audio engineer at my own studio called Dreamloud Studio. I'm also a bassist and currently playing with a couple bands, Nafel and The Fading Light. And I'm also a podcaster at the DIY Recording Guys, which you recently guested on.
So let's start with the first thing you got into. Well, let's start with music, how you first got into music in the first place. What kind of inspired you, or what bands inspired you to get into the music world?
Yeah, sure. So growing up, my mom was a piano teacher. She did that full time, so I didn't have a choice but to learn piano. I was kind of subjugated to that kind of a thing. And now looking back on it, I'm really thankful, because that's really where I got my love for music and foundation for music theory, and everything else that I really know and love about music started there at a young age. But I can remember when I was just entering my teen years and hearing this Christian metal band called Living Sacrifice. And it just ripped my face off, because they were the most metal thing that I'd never heard anything like it. Not just metal, but all I was exposed to before that was just kind of more alt rock or contemporary stuff. And I heard that metal record, and I think from there, something ignited on the inside of me where I knew that I need to investigate this metal or hard rock world a lot more. So that kind of started the fire for me way back whenever I was probably about 11 years old or so.
So tell me the first time you played a show. When was your first show, and what was that experience like?
Probably first what I would consider show is when I was in high school. We had a talent show. And it was a big deal because it was the first time that they had ever done this before at the high school. So everybody showed up to it. There was probably a good 200 people in this auditorium, which I would consider even a pretty big show from a touring perspective. But yeah, so I formed this band together really quick where we just did a couple cover songs. And just getting up on stage and having the lights go on and get into that element, it was very intoxicating because it felt like for the first time I could kind of be whoever I wanted to be to the fullest extent and not have to worry about fitting in with my peers or saying the right thing or not being socially awkward because I was a socially awkward kid. But it just kind of felt like I was there to shine, and it it was just a very like cathartic experience. So I think I was hooked after that.
Yeah. So after, you played in high school, you did that. When did you start touring? How old were you?
I was much older. I have a really weird story, so maybe I can go into that right now. And
Yeah.
this can probably be encouraging to late bloomers like myself. So I started playing bass when I was 13 years old. I picked that up because originally I was a drummer. So going back to that first story I told you where I heard that metal band Living Sacrifice, I just decided to start picking up drums, and I was playing anywhere between 4 to 8 hours a day because I wanted to be like a metal drummer. That was my thing. And I decided to pick up bass because I thought that learning another instrument would help my drumming. And as soon as I picked up bass, like everybody wanted me to play in their rock band because bassists were few and far between. So once I started playing bass, like I never really stopped, but at the same time, I had a lot of different interests. Like I was really big into sports in high school, and I really enjoyed schoolwork, and I enjoyed science and chemistry and things like that. So I actually decided to go to college for chemistry, and I have a Bachelor of Science in that. But through the whole time, whenever I went to college, every free moment that I got, even some that I should have been studying, I was playing bass and writing songs. And for real no apparent reason, I wasn't playing in any bands at the time whenever I was in college. But as soon as I got out of college and I got my first job in the chemistry field, I kind of realized I made a huge mistake, and I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I really should have been doing music all along. So from there, I really didn't know where to start because I didn't know anybody in the music industry. So I decided, well, if I want to be serious about this craft, I'm about age 22, 23 at this point. I decided that, well, if I want to be serious about my craft, I have to get a serious instrument, because before then, all I had been playing on was basically a $300 bass that I picked up a long time ago. So I went into Guitar Center and I just started messing around with different instruments that were there. And I played for about a solid hour on this one bass rig, just doing different stuff because I really wanted to hear, how much I like this bass guitar that I had in my hand. And it was just so interesting how, like, whenever you're meant to do something, the universe kind of opens up and like kind of gives you like a golden pathway to follow. It's so weird, but it was like the day after I decided, I really want to do something with this and take it seriously. And I was in that Guitar Center playing, that as soon as I was done playing, this guy walked up to me, and his name was Lee Caruso. And he said, dude, I have never heard a bass player like that before, man. You are one hell of a bass player. And so we kind of exchanged information, and he called me up a couple days later, and turns out that he was in a touring pop punk band, and he was just getting ready to kind of call it quits in that band and start his own project, which he wanted to be more hard rock / progressive rock. So we started building that project together from the ground up. It was just me and him, me as the bass player and songwriter, and him as the lead vocalist, lead guitar player, and another songwriter. And we recruited another member, Tom Gaskin, who also played drums for Lacey Sturm. So everything's all connected here. But it was just so crazy to me how that eventually turned into like a big project that we did, and we released a record, and it was really my first ever serious shows was with that group. The name was Big Atlantic, and it was just so crazy to me how really that kind of just turned around as soon as I was ready to commit and take it seriously. It was just like the universe or God, whatever you believe in, was out there kind of just waiting for me to take that jump, and everything fell into place after that. It's just kind of crazy how that works like that.
Yeah, no, you're totally right about the universe like paving a path ahead of you when it comes to especially following your passion. I think that there's something super special and incredible that happens whenever you find that thing you love and you let it consume you. It just allows you to it allows opportunities to come to you if you let them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, another note about that too. So while I was in college doing the whole chemistry thing and playing bass on the side, it was just so funny to me because the people around me were even taking notice of my musicianship abilities, even though I wasn't really doing anything with it. And it was those little voices that kind of really encouraged me to keep sticking with it, even though I wasn't doing anything serious or professionally with it at the time. Maybe in some ways I just needed that time to kind of mature, not only in my playing, but just in my personality, confidence, and just to bring the whole package together to be able to survive in the music industry and survive on tour, because there's a lot of pitfalls going out on the road. And whenever you're a freelancer, like you understand so much, Kay, you don't have a boss, or you don't have parents or people in authority over you telling you what to do every moment of the day. You have a lot of freedom, which is the reason why we want to be freelancers. But with all that freedom comes a lot of responsibility too. Like, you have a lot more power to make even worse decisions than you might work in a day job.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of day jobs, did you have any like 9-to-5 jobs to help supplement your income until you started getting paid to tour and things like that?
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that too. And that's kind of where I find myself in the meantime. So I worked for a big aluminum manufacturing company called Alcoa. You might have heard of them before. But I did aluminum chemistry for them for 7 years, and that was leading up to touring with Lacey Sturm, whenever she asked me to go out on the road with her. And that was a situation where I basically was maxing myself out, working 2 full-time jobs. The first one was doing chemistry for Alcoa, and then I was burning all 3 weeks of my vacation that I had every year, basically going on tour and doing shows or recording. Like, I wasn't using any of my vacation time to actually relax. It was go to work in the morning. Like, I live such an insane schedule, and it was not sustainable for the long term, but for at least 2 or 3 years, I would wake up at 5 every morning, go to work from 7 until 5:30, because I worked 10-hour shifts Monday through Thursday. Yeah, long days. And then I would come right home, and me and Lee Caruso in the band I was playing in at the time, Big Atlantic, we would go to the gym and work out because we were really into staying fit. And then we would write and record music all evening until probably, I don't know, midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning. And then I would get 4 hours of sleep and do it all over again. So, like, not sustainable, but like, I definitely think it's worth one of two things. So it's good to spread out your income into more than one avenue. So don't put all your eggs in one basket is the other term you've heard of probably before for that. And it's smart whether or not you still have a 9-to-5 job, whether you're part-time in freelance or you're full-time in freelance. It's just good to have different avenues of that income coming in, because if any one of them dries up, then you have the other ones to kind of rely on. And now that we've had this COVID situation and all the shutdowns, I actually have a pretty sweet gig right now where I'm doing audio engineering for a corporate company. And that's kind of a 9-to-5, but really I only work maybe 20 hours a week because there's so much downtime. And in the rest of that time, I'm doing audio engineering and writing from my home. So I'm really kind of maximizing my time right now. So if you have, not everybody has that ability to do something like that, and I've been really blessed with that, but I would recommend to people, if they have an opportunity to do maybe both, like a corporate job or something that has a little bit more stability to kind of get your feet underneath you, then you can do your passion, and not only do your passion, but maybe take projects that you care more about, and you're not necessarily forced into just taking projects to pay the bills, maybe that you don't care about as much, which we've all been there, and it's inevitable that's going to happen. But it's kind of nice now where I can pick and choose because I have that other income.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to reiterate your point for the audience, having multiple streams of income is almost vital these days. And we've seen that especially during this pandemic. Like, a lot of people had one stream of income from their 9-to-5 job, and then they got furloughed or laid off or whatever. And that one stream of income went away, and now they're drowning in their debt. They're drowning in all their bills that they have to pay. And so we've kind of seen how the statistic was that like 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck and only have like not even $1,000 available for emergencies. And this pandemic has really, I guess, inflated that and just made us see that even more. And so definitely, if you guys out there listening need some advice, definitely find another stream of income for sure. 1, 2, 3 streams of income. Start investing. There's so many different avenues you can take to build financial independence. And especially as a freelancer, I think that's super important to be financially independent as you can.
Absolutely. And for the same reason, I don't want to have people get the wrong idea about this too, but I also mean the same thing. If you're working a 9-to-5, now's the best time to think about maybe adding a side freelance business, because the same exact thing almost happened to me at Alcoa before I joined Lacey to start touring with her. And that was a big decision. Like, I had a really good income with that company. I was making a lot of money, and it was definitely going to be probably a 50% pay cut to go on the road and do what I love to do. So I really wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. But the way that it turned out was that going on tour was the absolute best thing that I could have done, because right after I handed in my 2-week notice to that company, they started laying off a whole bunch of people because their business was doing terribly. So I could have wound up getting laid off anyway. So just because you have a corporate job or something that seems more stable, it doesn't mean that it is more stable. I think it's good no matter if you have a 9-to-5 or you're a freelancer. You just are always thinking about ways you can get multiple sources of income. So just a final note on that.
Yeah. And I heard someone say that, I can't remember who it was, so I apologize for that. But they said, at the end of the day, we're kind of all freelancers.
I love that.
You could be let go from your job at any time. We all are at the mercy of our gig that we have.
That's absolutely true. And I kind of wish that, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, so I won't go too deep into this, but I kind of wish our education system, or maybe our society more in general, just kind of taught people that more growing up, that, invest in yourself, think about ways that you have a unique view of the world and capitalize that, turn it into a business, turn it into a freelance. Just because something's a hobby and you love doing it doesn't mean that you can never get paid for it. And we've really done a disservice to people my age and younger by not teaching them those things.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your first tour ever. Tell me what that was like for you, your first experience going on the road. Were you in a van? Were you in a bus? Like, what was it like for you?
It was so weird. It was kind of in between. So, man, big props to the Sturms for taking me out on the road. Josh Sturm, he is Lacey's husband, and also basically tour manager / run the show. He does like everything behind the scenes, and he had bought one of those shuttle buses that you see at airports that, they'll go pick you up and take you to. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He had bought one of those, and him and his dad, and with a tiny itsy bit of help from me, I didn't do that much, but I did help a little bit. We stripped that thing bare and built bunks to go in the back of it and turned that into our touring vehicle. And I would have never had that idea to do myself, but man, that's the kind of DIY attitude you really need to have to like make it in the music scene today. But So we had something like in between. It wasn't as nice and cozy as a tour bus, but it was definitely better than a van. Like we had somewhere that we could sleep in it, either while somebody else was driving, or we could just park in a Walmart parking lot and not have to spend money renting hotels. We could just sleep on our little retro van thing. But man, it was a 3-week tour, I think, or maybe a month-long one. So it wasn't super long, but we went out direct support of OTEP, which was really crazy. OTEP, am I saying that right? Yes.
Yeah.
OTEP, yeah. And that was crazy. This was my first like big time national tour ever, and kind of, thrown into the thick of things. And our first show, now we're all located from Team Lacey. We're all located in Western Pennsylvania. So about 7 hours west of the East Coast. So we're really right on the east side of America. And our first show was in Las Vegas, which was about a 4-day drive in that shuttle van because we couldn't really go over 60 miles per hour. So it was stressful, and it was a long drive. And Tom, also the drummer, he was in the same situation as me. He was a manager of a Starbucks, and he quit his job at the same time that I did. And here we are, fresh off of quitting our corporate jobs and jumping on the road to go on tour. And we're 3 days into it, going through Nevada, and we're climbing this super big hill, and it's 110 degrees outside, and our radiator starts to go, and we were stressed out about like, oh man, is the bus dead already? Are we even going to be able to make it to the first show? Like, it was exciting. And fast forward, yes, we did make it. We played that show and the rest of the tour, and it was awesome. But you just think the tour is just going to be 100% fun the whole time. And man, there's a lot of downtime, a lot of stress, a lot of things going on behind the scene, just trying to make it to each show. So it was quite the experience for sure.
And for those that have never toured, there's something that happens every day. There's something different happens every day. Some situation or some, issue, or that's just a part of touring. You're thrown into this kind of unknown realm of like what's gonna happen today, but it's always exciting, and we overcome a lot when we're on the road. So tell me how that, overall, what that tour meant to you to be out there on the road and doing something you love.
It just felt like, great question. I mean, it just felt like the fulfillment of everything that I've wanted to do from the time I was little. Like I was just so humbled from just the idea of like, there's so many people that want to do this, and I actually got a chance to do it. Like I remember feeling just that sense of being so lucky and blessed and grateful just to be able to do that tour. Like we had no idea what really was going to happen after that. We had nothing lined up. Like we were just going from tour to tour, aka day to day, and just it really teaches you to live in the moment a lot more. Like when you have a normal job, and there's definitely negatives to being a touring artist too. Like there's a lot of negatives to it, but it kind of forces you to appreciate all the little things that happen in a day. And, even if I never get to do another tour again, like that's something I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. Just that learning to appreciate all the little things, even the sucky things that you hate, because those are the main things that make up life,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit. Tell me, or tell the audience how we met each other and how we got to work together.
I don't remember what festival it was, but I know it was more than one. Like we were doing the summer festival circuit, and the weird thing about like that hard rock world is that I was joking around with some of my friends whenever I was telling them from back home. It's like all of these bands that you've heard of that you hear on the radio, like when you get on the summer festival circuit, it's almost like you have just a touring office. Like all these festivals, the same bands play on it, but it's just like you all pick up town and you move and you play in a different city. And it's like, oh yeah, I saw you like just a couple days ago, but it was 5 states away. And well, Kay, me and you, we just kept running into each other, and it was so random because it wasn't even like you were shooting or taking videography or photos of Lacey. I was just checking out other bands, and we either kept running into each other at side stage or whatever it was, but we just kind of kicked it off there. And I remember specifically you were on the road with Escape the Fate, and I don't know how close you are with Renee Phoenix, but we were watching her band at the time, Fit for Rivals, and they were really cool as well. And I remember you hanging out with her and maybe doing some photography of them too. So I think that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, so it's crazy. I'll tell my side of the story. So yeah, I was on tour with Escape the Fate, and I had done a tour previous to that one. I was working with New Year's Day, and them and Escape the Fate were sharing a bus together. And so the next tour, they did like 2 tours back to back. And the next tour, Escape the Fate hired me, and they shared a bus again with New Year's Day. So I basically just switched bands, and it was
so
super
funny.
cool, you know? So yeah, it's super interesting how that happens. You just make these connections on the road or whatever, make these relationships. And then the next thing you know, you're working for this person, you're playing music for this person, you're shooting videos for them. So like you said, Escape the Fate was doing the summer circuit. And prior to those 2 tours, I went on a tour as a videographer for an artist named Diamante, and she was opening up for Flyleaf with their new vocalist, who is Kristen. So, and I was a huge Flyleaf fan. Like, as a metal screamer, I obviously looked up to Lacey when I was a teenager and listening to Flyleaf. So that was like really cool to get to, go on tour with a band supporting them. And Fit for Rivals was direct support for that tour. So that's how I met Renee and them and got connected with them. So fast forward, we're doing summer tour circuit, and I see that Lacey's playing these shows, and I was like, I gotta go check out her music. So check them out, and then I started snapping some photos of Lacey and the band during those shows whenever I wasn't doing stuff for Escape. And about 2 weeks prior to the end of tour, I get a call from Lacey's manager, Dubs, and he was like, hey, when does your tour end? Do you want to fly out to Pennsylvania to film for Lacey's first single, Rot?
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh my God, do you want me to do what? Only work with like one of my favorite artists? Yes, please. So I literally got off tour 4 days later, flew out to Pennsylvania, met up with you guys, and we shot the music video for Rot. And Ben and I kind of location scouted.
That was a lot of fun.
Everybody was waiting outside. We explored this abandoned glass making refinery and filmed an entire music video in it. And then I was there for 4 days. We filmed the band performances. We filmed the storyline, everything. And it was such a cool experience. It was like, it was honestly, like, as a freelancer, it was the biggest gig I had gotten ever. So it was a huge deal to me to be a part of that, and just a really, really cool experience. So yeah, that's how Ben and I met and got connected. So let's transition and talk about Dream Loud. Let's talk about music production. Tell me what made you want to get into the music production side of things, because there are a lot of musicians out there that solely play or solely are musician for hire for touring, but you decided to go the production route. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm glad you framed it that way too, because in some ways, in all the stuff that I'm telling you guys, like, I didn't set my goal on doing specifically what I'm doing right now. And it's totally fine if you're that kind of a person, like, you set a goal and you try to achieve that goal and nothing's going to get in your way until you reach that goal. I'm just not really that person. I'm more along the type of guy that I just do what I like to do. And over time, it just evolves into something else, or I understand something a little bit deeper about myself, and then it kind of directs my path a little bit more. So with all that being said, all I ever wanted to do when I was younger was just play bass in a rock band and go on tour. I thought that's what I wanted to do. And so that really was my only focus really until I got into Lacey. Maybe a little bit before then, I started getting my feet wet with recording and things like that. But once I got out on the road, I realized that, man, there's nothing that, and this is still true to this day, even though I have a studio, like there's nothing better than playing live music and a live show in front of people. It's still probably my number one favorite thing to do. But from going on tour, I realized that that's only like 5% of what being on tour is. And I didn't so much love the rest of it. And that might be reflective of my situation or what touring was like just on the tours that I've been in. I mean, you might like it a lot more, but that was a really important thing for me to take note of. And the wheels started turning in my head there, and I started thinking about, how can I continue to still be in the music industry, to scratch this itch of playing live shows, but still at the same time, like I love writing music. I love creating stuff. So I started thinking about, well, what if I started recording other bands? Or what if I started really writing a lot more? Is that a possibility? Could I do that? So I just started experimenting, really. With a couple people that I met out on the road, I asked them if they would be willing for me to, if they would be willing to be my guinea pigs and come to the studio and record with me, and also with some of my own family and some of my own friends. And I started realizing, hey, I've got a little bit of a knack for this, and it seems like people really like what I'm doing. And even word of mouth started spreading from there. And I got a couple people that hit me up really on in the game on Instagram that were like, hey, I saw that you were playing with this person, or I heard you do this thing, and I'm curious if you want to record me or do that kind of a thing. So I didn't really intend to start a studio or go that route, but it just kind of seemed that all of my skills were combining together to, even though I was a good player, I like the creation and I have this engineering mind as well. And it kind of suited myself really well to being an engineer in the studio, and even helping some of my best clients, and some of my favorite clients actually are people who have good songs. They're maybe good singers, but they can't really play instruments that well, and mostly because they haven't practiced a lot. And so I've done a few projects where people have brought their songs to me, and I basically played all the instruments and put their records together, and they came out with a product that was way better than they could have done on their own. And that's probably, like, even though I love playing music in front of people, there's nothing as rewarding as helping an artist like achieve what they're going for. And that's kind of the whole idea behind Dreamloud Studio is just helping artists achieve their dreams. Like, they have an ideal image in their mind of this is what they're like on stage. If only somebody could bring that out of them and show it to the rest of the world. And that's really what I love to do and what I try to do for people. So it's just been really, it's been really fulfilling to me. And the other awesome thing about it too is that I get to work on new music every day, all day, instead of playing the same few songs through a whole tour. So I like that as well.
So take me through the process of creating a song. Like, where do you start? Like, I assume you get like an idea from the artist, or maybe even a demo. So what is your process like from start to finish, and what different softwares and plugins do you use that you would recommend to people? Sure.
So I started recording using Cakewalk Pro, which I don't think they even make anymore. But after I got my feet wet with that recording software, I bought like a cheap USB audio interface that Presonus makes. I think it's called the AudioBox USB 2.0, and it was $100, and it came with a demo version of Studio One in it. And so I started really learning that software, and I just kept upgrading and I went to the artist pack, and then the producer pack, and then the professional pack. And so I have the full version of that, and I've just stuck with it ever since then. And I guess a little bit of advice I will give there, like if you want to work in the music industry, maybe for a more commercial studio, it's definitely worthwhile learning Pro Tools, because pretty much every studio has Pro Tools in there. So even if you're not working in the studio, if you want to rent out a space, like if you want to, like me, my studio is more of a home studio, but if I ever wanted to rent out a space to record live drums or something like that, it's just a good idea to be familiar with Pro Tools, because then you can go in and seamlessly track and then bring the tracks back to your studio. But really, all the digital audio workstations, like you just told me you were recording on Reaper. I have Studio One. I know a lot of people that use Logic and Cubase. They all essentially are really the same. Like there's no really difference in production quality that you can get out of any of them. It's just whatever suits your needs. So do your research and just pick one and stick with it and learn it really well. But okay, let's talk about the songwriting. So a singer-songwriter or a band comes into the studio, or even before they come into the studio, the first thing I like to ask people for are some references. And that's mostly for, okay, tell me what kind of sound you guys are going for. I have the raw tracks, or I have your demo that you sent me, or maybe a cell phone recording. But what are you really inspired by, and what do you want this record to sound like? And that doesn't necessarily have to be stylistically. That can even be soundscape wise. Like a metal person can send me a hip hop recording and say, I like the low end in this. I want it to feel this way. And it's just a good idea to have those references, or to get, it helps me get in the mind of the artists themselves and kind of see their vision for the song and see where they want to take it. Because now I do put a lot of my own creativity and myself into even other artists' material that I help produce, but I always try to get in the artist's head themselves, because if you can't do that, then they're not going to be happy with the product. So that's normally the first thing that I do. And if they have a demo recorded that's half decent, and preferably to a click track, I'll have them send it over to me. And a lot of times what I like to get started with is I'll just start being inspired, and I'll go ahead and do my best shot at producing the song. And what I mean by that is, if I feel like, okay, this is a guitar driven song, I'll track guitar at my studio by myself without the band ever being here first, or I'll put some bass in it, or I'll put a drum part in it, or maybe I'll change their drums, or I'll give them feedback on, hey, your song's 6 minutes long. What if we chopped it up here and made it a 4-minute song that maybe could get on the radio, or is a little bit more accessible to people that like pop music more? So that's kind of where it starts. And I like to be prepared that way for whenever the artist comes into the studio, that I've already got something going. And a lot of times they like it and we can play off of that, but there's a few times where the artist is like, ooh, I wasn't really feeling that, can we change it up? And that's totally fine too. Like as a producer, you've got to realize that at the end of the day, the artist is calling the shots. They hired you. So you need to be able to put your own ego, like check your ego, leave it at the door, and just be humble enough to serve.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And it's the same with, videography and video editing. Like you have to remember that they hired you for a reason, and they're putting a lot of their trust into you as a creator, as an artist yourself. And so you also need to be open to their feedback and their input and everything. Like I know there are some people out there that are very like, nope, this is my idea. This is what we're doing, period. But I think that when you're producing something, it needs to be a collaborative episode, a collaborative effort. I think that's super important. Like, for example, when we filmed the Rot music video, I had a storyboard planned out, everything. We changed the idea like 3 times when I got to Pennsylvania, so it was ever changing while we were filming. And that's the important thing, is to collaborate with the person that's hiring you to create that content or that song or whatever it is you're working on.
Now I'll add to that too, like just from seeing you in that experience, Kay, and even from just all the experience I've had working with artists, like I'm not naturally built that way. Like I'm more of an organized person. And so I don't like plans to change that much. But if you're really going to make it as a freelancer, and especially in any role where you're acting like a producer, you've just got to learn that skill of going with the flow. And I think the best way to go about it is exactly what you did. Like, you came prepared with your storyboard, but you were immediately ready to go off script if ever need be. And if you don't have that skill yet, you need to learn it. And I think vice versa. Like, you might be super awesome at improving, but it's so important to have direction too. So even if it's just a skeleton, you got to have like a plan of how you're going to tackle things. Because in that rock music video that you filmed, like, we really only had the minimal amount of time to shoot a music video. Like, I don't think there was any extra time left over, if I remember correctly.
No, we went from, almost sunrise to sunset. We did a lot during that time. It was like a very, I guess we could say kind of hectic production. But as a documentary filmmaker by trade, that's my number one love, is filming like documentary content. I'm so used to going with the flow and like just film everything, and like simultaneously while we were filming the music video, I was also filming a behind the scenes video, for
that's awesome.
my own content.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always like thinking like 4 steps ahead, like, because first of all, I know people love seeing behind the scenes. It's something I love filming, and I love being able to share that aspect with everybody. So just always be able to go with the flow. And if you haven't done that, you need to definitely learn how to be more comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's well said. Perfect.
And then tell me, have you ever been screwed over before?
Oh, of course. Haven't we all? No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's why it's a question, It's,
yeah.
And that's the concise answer, is haven't we all?
Yeah. Now, of course, I'll give you a couple examples of this. So probably the one that hurt the most, and I won't go into any details, and probably before I go into any of this, I will say that, like, it's inevitable, especially as a freelancer, you're just going to get screwed over. Like, it's part of, I don't know, your badge of honor for deciding to be a freelancer, I guess. Like, don't despise it. Just realize that it happens to us all, and you're going to have a story to tell later. But you have to learn how to deal with that kind of disappointment. And it's not easy all the time. Like, I had a really hard time with a couple of times that I was screwed over, but you've got to learn to forgive people and move on and not be bitter about it. Because if you get bitter, it just will poison you to everybody around you and to your potential clients. Like, there's nothing more distasteful than going on social media and just seeing somebody getting put on blast because of how they got hurt. And unfortunately, the reality is nobody cares. Like, no, in general, nobody cares. People just want to digest good art. They don't have time to care about all of the drama that goes on behind the scenes. And as you and I know, Kay, like, there's a lot of drama that happens in the art world and in touring. It's crazy. But you've just got to learn to, none of us are perfect. We're all fallible and we all make mistakes. So just learn to forgive. But going into a couple of the stories, I'll just be vague, but I have been uninvited from going on tour before, and that really sucks. Yeah, that really sucks. But I will say about that kind of the reason that happened was I wasn't necessarily happy with how a certain touring relationship was working out between me and the artist. And I just decided that, I have to be honest about this. I have to talk about how I'm feeling. And I didn't like how some things were going down. And I just needed to speak my piece and put it out there and have them respond. And I knew that one of the ways they could respond is from uninviting me from tour. But I reserved in my head that I was okay with that because I had gotten to the point where I just needed to be honest. And that's okay. Like, sometimes that just happens, like, creative differences. Like, we hear that excuse all the time whenever like bands break up or things like that happen. But it's definitely a valid excuse. So I would say that that's probably not the best idea in every situation. But if you ever find yourself in a situation where maybe you don't feel like you're being treated fairly, or you feel like there are some things that are unsaid, I definitely think that it's worth being tactful about, and just looking at all the options that you could do. Like, do you have the relationship with that person, like the said person that's wronging you, to go with them and be honest with them, and just look at maybe all the consequences of that. And if you're okay with things not turning out okay, then by all means be honest. But I wouldn't say that like I'm 100% honest with everybody around me. That would just be foolish. Like, there's sometimes where you just have to keep your mouth shut. But that's definitely something. It's something interesting that I feel like I never really had to think about too much until becoming a freelancer. But you get put in those situations a lot more where you have to be tactful and think about, do I just want this paycheck and I'm just hoping things go well until the project's over, or do I want to be honest, kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all that. I think that it's super important that people realize that you can, speak about your feelings if you're going through a situation. You need to be able to do that and have the strength and courage to approach that. But also you need to pick your battles, like you said, like sometimes it's better not to say anything. You just have to pick your battles, because at the end of the day, like, your job is on the line, when it comes to situations like that. And like you said, like, you've been uninvited from tour before. Like, that's a very it's a really shitty experience, like, to be honest. Like, I can't personally relate, but I mean, I've been pretty close to being like uninvited from tours, just because like I bumped heads with the tour manager or, like somebody on the road. So yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of situations like that, where it's either you speak your mind or you just got to be quiet and kind of work it out and do your best to continue to push forward. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast that you are a part of. I would like to hear a little bit about that, why it was started, and what your goals are overall as an artist, as a creator.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a podcast called the DIY Recording Guys that I run with my good friend Vadim. He's also an audio engineer working out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the whole idea behind that was that, we're both trained audio engineers, really, from the School of Hard Knocks and from the internet. So we saw a lot of content out there for mixing in particular. Like, there's tons of stuff on YouTube and just on blogs in general. But we really felt like that there wasn't a good, especially a bridge between the very beginner and super advanced stages when it came to do-it-yourself recording. There's a ton of artists out there, and even artists that I work with, where I would love to be able to help them and show them how they can get really top quality recorded, at least vocals or bass guitar or electric guitar or whatever they're doing from their own home. Like, it's definitely doable. Like, technology is to the place now where you can record Billboard topping albums from your home. Like, you don't got to go to the studio anymore. I won't say that like it's not useful to go to like $1 million studio. It definitely is. You've got more tools available, but the barrier to entry has been lowered so much by the advancements in technology that really Vadim and I wanted to take our expertise and really kind of funnel that back in, basically talking to versions of ourselves whenever we first got into recording, because the biggest questions in everybody's mind whenever they start recording is, what do I need to get? How much money do I need to spend? And at least in my mind, when I first started, the biggest weight on my back and like the one thought I could never get out of my head is, are my recordings this crappy because my gear just isn't good enough? Or is it because I'm not that good yet? And really, we're trying to help people answer those kind of questions on the podcast. Because unfortunately, the way that a lot of marketing is built for these companies, they're gearing to try to convince you that your gear is not good enough so that you go and buy more. It's a vicious kind of cycle. And we're trying to maybe not undo that, but at least give you a little bit more of a balanced and honest perspective on what is good gear, what is bad gear, and these are the things that will actually make a difference for your recording. That's the whole idea with the podcast.
I love it. I think it's great. And I think it's a great resource for people out there that are, trying to get into this game. And I mean, you can win a Grammy or, 7 Grammys if you're Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas from working on music in your bedroom. Like,
it's true.
Even the top musicians out there are now doing things from home studios. You've got producers like yourself that have home studios. John Feldman works out of his house, so like even the top people are doing this stuff from the comfort of their homes. And so I think that more people should know about that. And so I think that it's super valuable that you created this podcast to help young up and coming artists get into the game. And for everyone listening, I record vocals in my closet, as long as you got a dampened space, you can do pretty much anything there.
Yeah, and your vocals sound dang good, so
thank you, sir.
You're doing it right.
Thank you, sir. I have really amazing producers around me as well, so that helps a lot too, so.
Yes,
all
for
right.
sure.
So, Ben, we talked about quite a bit today. I have one final question for you.
Sure.
That is, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
So I've touched on this a little bit before, but I'll maybe go into a little bit more depth. I'll summarize it like this. I wish I would have just started doing the things I love sooner and stopped worrying about figuring out what I wanted to do. And maybe we just tell kids the wrong thing whenever they're getting ready to graduate from high school. We're asking the wrong question. What do you want to be whenever you grow up? Because the world doesn't really work that way anymore. It's really hard to just, as a young teenager, pick something that you're going to do and wind up doing that. Like, it does happen sometimes, but I think for me, I would have never known that I wanted to be a producer or a studio engineer had I not taken the first step and said, oh, I kind of like this metal band a little bit. Maybe I'll learn some drums. Oh, drums is pretty fun. I wonder if I could be a better drummer by learning bass. Oh, I actually like bass more than I like drums. Oh, I have an opportunity to go and record this album and write with this band. Oh, that's cool. Lacey wants me to go on tour with her. Oh, that's cool. I don't really like touring as much as I thought I would, but I'm kind of still loving the songwriting. And so all these little steps kind of led me to the place that I am now. And I just feel like I could have been 10 years ahead of where I am if I would have just done that back in high school instead of waiting so much longer to do this kind of thing. So that would be my encouragement to people out there is don't feel like you got to have everything figured out. Just take the one thing that you love to do so much and just start doing it. Start creating. If you love photography, take some photos, enter them in a photo contest. And that will be the true test to is your skill up to task, or are other people seeing value in your art? Because you're going to get feedback on that. Even posting it on Instagram, you'll start to get that reinforcement of oh, people are really liking my work out there. It's encouraging me to go farther into this. But it also kind of, it's kind of a weird thing where it's almost like in life, whenever you're following your dreams and your passions, you got to take the steps before the path is built before you. I'm just getting this image in my mind of somebody kind of walking off the edge of a cliff, and all of a sudden there's just these invisible tiles that are just appearing. But that's often what it's like being a freelancer. So I think you just got to embrace the feeling of I don't know what I'm doing and this could all end terribly, but inevitably it doesn't if you're following your passions and you're true to yourself.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. This has been an amazing episode. I appreciate you taking the time to do this and sharing your stories, your insights, and your opinion on things, So thank you for coming on to Project Freelance. If people want to hire you or get in touch with you to pick your brain more, where can they go? How can they find you?
Absolutely. So the easiest places are, Facebook and Instagram. You can go to, they're both just search Dream Loud Studio. My Instagram handle is Dreamloud Studio as well. No letters or numbers or weird stuff. So you can do that. My website is dreamloudstudio.com. You can get in touch with me that way, or ben@dreamloudstudio.com. You can email me there. For the DIY recording guys, it's the same. You can reach out to us on Facebook. We have a community page where we discuss a lot of gear tips and tricks, and just any questions you guys might have. You can join that community to do that. Or we also have a Facebook page that you can join to see updates and everything that we've got going on. And the same for our Instagram. It's DIY Recording Guys.
Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on to the podcast and sharing your stories, your insight, and your experience with my audience. I'm sure they will get a ton out of this episode. If you did like this episode, please do me a favor and leave a rating and some feedback. It helps the podcast grow, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. If you do leave a rating and feedback, I will send you a signed photo print. All you have to do is take a screenshot of your rating or feedback and send it to me at Project Freelance on Instagram or at K.Anagonio on Instagram. All my social media links will be down in the description for you guys if you want to follow me. And just a huge thank you to the people who have bought one of my books this month. You guys are amazing. I appreciate that so much. I love sharing my stories and my photos with you guys. So if you want to get a copy of my book, No Tracers, An Urban Explorer's Diary, absolutely go check that out. Well, I guess I'll talk to you guys next week on another episode of Project Freelance. Come back for more. I hope you stick around. Hit that subscribe button. Stay strong. Keep enduring. Go out and go create something.